All right. So I got this question. I've asked this question in some form before, but I'm going to go ahead and read the full question. So Michael from Twitch says, kind of career advice question here. I've been interviewing for tech jobs. Right now, I'm in the final consideration of two of them. One pays significantly higher um, than the other one, but I think I'll get more relevant experience at the other. If you were a junior engineer, what would you do? And next, I know I reread the question. I'm glad I did. If I were a junior engineer at that age, I probably would be more inclined to take the money, even though 53-year-old Mr. Rob would definitely go for the experience. And I don't. I think that might be just the nature of where you are at the time. I had a family and everything. So you asked me what I would do, and I'm not telling you what to do. By the way, everybody is different. We all have different circumstances and priorities. But my answer would be do what you feel like is going to take you to the next step of the game. If the next step of the game is for you is you want to buy a house, you want to start a family, money might sound better. But if the next step for you is you only want to be in that job for 3 or 4 years, you should never stay in the same job for more than 5 years, by the way. That's a kiss of death, staying in a job more than 5 years. Everybody in the industry knows that you're going to bounce within 5 years. If you don't, it's just like sitting on a house forever. You'll never get the money out of it in a hot real estate market because you can't flip it to get I hate that that's true, but it's very, very, very rare that someone will continue to pay you what you're worth over more than 5 years. It's you almost, particularly if you're a very aggressive learner and autodidact who's doing a lot of stuff on their own, they're not going to ever truly appreciate your additional investment. Very rare, anyway, for a company to appreciate your value as you increase. And it's going to, even the best companies who do research to find out what the going rate is for. I mean, at IBM, I made an extra, God, yeah, what was it? Something like 20 or 30 grand a year just because they changed my title to software engineer. I was doing the same exact thing. I got bought up internally by another company within the company, and all of a sudden, I got reclassified, started making more money out of nowhere. The whole money thing, by the way, is just so bonkers. Can I just say I'm just so confused by how value is established, blah blah blah. And to be fair, I'm not motivated by money these days. I'm more like Elliot from Mr. Robot. I don't give a shit about money. I do need it, and I went back to corporate because I couldn't support my family and get insurance for all those reasons. So, if your priority is on starting a family, now the danger with doing that on the new salary, can I just say, this is really, I'm going to put this down here. Okay, so there's a danger in getting accustomed to a certain salary. So I'm not saying don't take the money, but the experience with less money is ultimately going to add you more money later, right? So it's going to take patience, right? Experience pays more later than cash today. So I mean, God, you can go get a job as a Java programmer or a COBOL programmer, particularly right now. You seriously, you can learn COBOL. I'm not even making fun of it. You could learn COBOL just because you wanted to get started. You could go if you're just starting software developer in COBOL who's got some level of experience. I don't know how you get the experience because you gotta have access to a COBOL system. But if you did, I mean, you could walk into a 200,000 a year job doing COBOL because nobody's doing it. So it really depends if that's what you. But then what are you gonna do later, right? So 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 yeah so the there so the other thing too is careful what you put in your resume, what you are forced to put in your resume. So I have a bunch of Java coding experience in my resume, and I almost keep it out these days. I am so sick and tired of being contacted by Java recruiters. I'm like, I don't want to code Java. I got it's like on repeat, right? I would be like, I don't want to code Java, but if you have any jobs coding Go or doing any cloud native stuff, let me know. Okay, sure, fine, we'll let you know. And I'm off LinkedIn now for other reasons I'll talk about another day, but I hate LinkedIn. Um, so so the answer I would say is do the thing that's best for you in the long term, unless you have an immediate need for the salary. And if you do take the money, be super careful that you don't make permanent financial decisions based on that income. Because honestly, I have seen this over and over again, and I did this. People get house poor, they buy too much of a house, they have kids that they can't pay for, they jump all in with both feet a little bit too early, and they're not a little bit more cautious. Not so much now. Now with COVID and the climate these days, I think that's not as much the case. I think people are more cautious, particularly Zoomers and millennials. I think they're really cautious about how they move forward. They'd rather get a dog than a child and things like that. And I'm not judging any of that. That's all up to you to make that decision. I just think you need to be really, really careful about locking yourself into a salary. So, you get a mortgage, you get a certain number of children, I mean, as soon as you get married and have kids, you have got to work for a corporation in America or you can't get fucking insurance. It's impossible. I mean, seriously, I don't, that's not hyperbole. I had to go back to work. I had a great job that I started for my own company, and I had to go back to get decent insurance. I have a cancer survivor wife. I have Asperger's children, and I'm, a child, and I just couldn't. I had to do it. I had to give up on my American dream because I couldn't afford it, and I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it. So what I'm trying to warn against, I guess, having lived through a lot of this is, I mean, I left Nike when the recruiter called me up, and I've told the story before, but the recruiter said, "Hey, your buddy told me that you're great. He wants me to call you. He just left the company. He said, make sure to call, Rob and get him." And it said, and I was busy. I had a deadline at Nike I had to get through. And it was in Java and everything. And I said, look, just to get rid of him, I said, please, I can't even talk to you unless you can give me an extra 35K. And I said it, to be dismissive. I wanted to be polite, but I said, look, if it's unless it's really going to change my life, I really don't want to talk to you. And he said, no problem. Can you fly to Dallas next week? I fly to Dallas next week, got an interview, and doubled, or actually not quite doubled. It was less than doubled my salary. I was a junior. I mean, seriously, I was working for $36,000 for Nike when I first worked there. Nike takes so much advantage of their people. I cannot even tell you. This was in the 90s. So in the 90s, I was working for Nike for $36,000 a year, and I thought I was flying high. And I started, and then I went to IBM. This is 2000. My first salary, I don't mind telling you, at IBM was in the 80s or 90s. And you can understand, but I was used to less money. Because I had 3 kids at the time. Is that right? Yeah. And I had, a wonderful life. I was super happy. I had all the toys I could ever want. In terms of I was a cyclist and had a garage full of old Linux machines that I was fixing. I was happy, and I didn't need more money, and neither did my family. My ex-wife now, she was, when she we were super excited because we could get this extra money, and that really changed our life. But we ended up working for IBM for a while, and then IBM doubled our rates of insurance for kids over 3 kids, and they made it impossible for us to have insurance. Even at IBM, I couldn't pay for it. I mean, it was well over $1,000 a month, and this was just because I had four kids, and I had to leave. We had to move to try to adjust our expenses and stuff. So when you're trying to make those initial family decisions about what to do, don't. The reason it was such a bump in salary for me is because I had taken this, really low paying, high stress, 90 hours. I was working 90 hours a week. People, don't do this. Beginners do this all the time. They get abused by this. I hear about it, game developers at Bethesda and things like that. And my son shows me these horrible videos about them and Capcom and all these other in Ubisoft and all these places that people are really, really burning themselves out, and they think that they're going to get ahead, and then they're not even really making that much money on top of all of that because they think that they can do that. Don't do that. Don't do it. Don't do it. Find your work-life balance and be happy and stay happy. And then you'll, I didn't mean this video to be this long, but what else is new? Seriously, they locked us in I won't even talk about it. We were working 90 hours. They called me, my ex-wife literally went ballistic on some Sunday. They texted me while we were driving to her parents' house for a nice Sunday dinner. And they said, no, you need to come in right away. And I said, honey, I got to do this. So I drove there. She was fuming. She was fuming. She was so angry. This was on Sunday. We were having a nice, I was Mormon at the time, and we were having a nice, relaxing time. My family hadn't even seen me, and she has young kids. It's hard. Because I was working so much. They had this big Nike ID thing that they had to get out, and they couldn't spare us at all. And so said, no, we really need you. We really need you here this weekend. You got to be pushing and everything. And you know what they said too? They put all of us in a room because we were all stressed and getting ready to quit. And they put all of us in a room and they said, get used to it. This is a .com, just like any other .com. It was Nike.com. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. It's probably time for you to leave. This is probably not a good fit for you. 30 people quit the next week. I kid you not. That was a true story. And one of those guys is the one who gave me the recruiter job, got me my early IBM job, doing the same thing for less time for $35,000 more. So, yeah, dude, there's no difference. Right. It was either 40 or 90 hours. It's like, which one are you going to do? Right. Your first job out of college in 91 was 28K. Yeah, working 9 to 100 hours, 7 days a week, burned out in 2 years. Lacerated digits. Thank you for sharing that. That we come from a different generation. The Gen X is among us. We were raised with that kind of. I think it's not just our generation, but we all tend to burn out when we're young. When we're young, we see all the money and we're just like, oh my God, right? And then we just we make mistakes. And there's a lot to consider there. It's not an easy answer, and it really depends on what you want. But if you're alone and you're single and you feel like you can put up with that kind of stuff, then I might do it. Maybe not. If I were single and I had no responsibilities whatsoever, would I take the high paying job? And I almost did that, by the way. Vladivostok, after I learned Russian, there was a job posting that came across through the Russian department at my university for teaching English as a second language on site in an oil rig in Vladivostok in like the middle of like Siberia, Russia. And I was married, but and this is a woman who like couldn't even stay in Russia with me on the cruise ship. So she didn't want anything to do with it, but it paid so well for like 2 or 3 months. It was like $30,000 or $40,000. And I was like, can we just put up with this and just make the money and then cash in and then go do something else? So I say that because if you are young and you don't have a wife and kids and stuff that's going to like, then as long as your ethics are in check, go for the money quickly and then get out. The problem is you might not get out. You might end up getting sucked into that lifestyle and then you're stuck. Because you can't get out. So just don't get stuck. You worked at 3 startups, never got much financial gain, but learned a lot. Yeah. And startups are really good at taking from you. I would never do that again, by the way. I did work for 2 startups. Who am I to talk, right? I worked for 3 startups, actually. I worked for a cruise travel tourism startup. I worked for Fiber.net in Utah. I was the first internet service provider in the whole area. And then I worked for another established internet service provider that got bought out at Teleport in Oregon. And then I got headhunted into Nike, and then from Nike I got headhunted into IBM, et cetera, et cetera. Can you get really stuck? You can quit jobs anytime. That's a good point. You really can quit anytime. The only time you can't quit, and I had my manager tell me this, the day that I said that I was leaving IBM, I actually talked with one of my older managers. I don't remember the exact details. I might be getting details wrong, but he said, I wish I could leave. And great guy, really skilled and talented. He had health issues, and so did his family, and he could not afford a job change, financially, and all the other things that it would take to do it. And so he felt stuck. And there's another story about that too I could tell, but I've met at least 2 people in my career that told me straight to my face, I wish I had the flexibility to leave. And, say what you want about Noam Chomsky, but one of the things that he very sort of disruptively says all the time is like, you don't think that you live in a tyranny, but you work for a tyrant. Every single person who works for a corporation is working for a dictatorship. They decide who gets healthy, how you eat, how much you get paid. You give up personal freedoms to work in a capitalist society where people are saying those things. And I'm not attacking capitalism right now, but the idea that you're free is you know, it's tricky, right? Because you are free, but you're kind of not free too, right? I was not free to run my own business in America. I was forced to go to corporate America and take a job so I could have insurance and pay it at a reasonable rate that I could afford. I was forced to do this by America, by the way America works. If this was a truly free society, we would have a social safety net that would have allowed me to pursue my entrepreneurial dreams and to explore those things without being afraid of dying in the streets. Because if I accidentally cut myself or trip on a runner someday, I don't have health care. Or my wife is going to pay $2,000 for an EpiPen because she'll die if she gets fish exposure. So is the idea that we're free is so how does that relate to should you take the money or better tech? It's not just about the money and the tech. First of all, make sure you get a career that's going to keep, provide for your needs, bottom line. And if that includes health insurance too, you might have to do that. You might not care about that now if you're young, but as you get a family later, another reason, right? You might work for a startup that pays nothing but stock and burns you out and has great benefits, and has a foosball table and it gets you great experience, right? But unless that experience can parlay into something that's going to give you the ability to make roots later, if you want to, then I would avoid it. If you want to fly high and fast and just stay single and work on the contract, I was seriously tempted to do that. I was Mormon, so I didn't. But if I were to go back to it, I would stay a digital nomad. I would travel the whole world and work from my laptop for the highest bidder. And I would do that for as long as I could until I got really lonely. And then I would meet a woman and I'd settle down and put roots down, stuff like that. That's what I would do. That's a really long one, but this is a fun topic to talk about because it is about life. It's not just about tech. It's about, what is tech doing for you? He says here, you definitely felt trapped. You feel trapped now. I can't quit. My current job pays way too well. Yeah. Well, it's not that it pays too well. It's that you're already used to what it pays, right? If you don't ever get used to what it pays, then you can get rid of that extra money. I'll tell you what though, one of the best things, I didn't plan this at all. Okay. So I'm living in an apartment right now. I mean, I'm making crazy good money and I'm living in an apartment because I did my own business and it was the transition and the COVID thing and all of that. And it's just the craziest thing because my wife's also bringing in more money now because her art's picking up big time. And here I am. I mean, you never know it. You never know it because I'm literally living in this tiny little $1,000 a month apartment, $1,100 a month apartment, and we've got the money to get a pretty hefty mortgage if we wanted to in a year. So, but that's because I went back to work for corporate America. That wasn't the case, 2 years ago, working for myself. So you just, it's really nice though because every once in a while I look at the bank account, I'm like, oh shit. Because I'm not used to it. I'm used to struggling and like, how are we going to get extra money for, this mentorship, or do I have to raise rates for the kids? Running your own business is immensely exhausting. So it's easier to get some venture capitalists to give you the nod and then just burn up 4K Series A and then go someplace else and pursue other interests like people do. I don't have the ethics to do that, but people do. People do it all the time. Same thing in Canada. After all, we're an old French colony and learning more on the social programming side of things. Really? Yeah. So somebody else says, strongly considering digital nomad life. Lots of countries offering digital nomad work visas. Yeah, absolutely. It costs, what? You just gave me goosebumps. Honestly, I just got legitimate goosebumps thinking about the possibility for you, because that to me, look, I am not an indoor person. I am not designed to sit in front of a computer. I ended up getting a job that requires I sit in front of a computer for how many hours a day? I mean, you see me just streaming here, right? I hate it. I hate that I have to sit in front of a computer. I am naturally an outdoors person who just wants to be outdoors all the time. And I'm actually, all this running again is like triggering all that in me again. And it makes it really hard for me to stream and do other things indoors. If I could live out of a van and go everywhere and just, code enough to pay the bills, my minimal bills, and just, sample the wine and women from the whole world, I would do it. I would do it. You only live once, man. YOLO. I mean, if I was young, I'm not though. I'm older now. And now the crazy thing is that my wife is we're at a point in our relationship where she's like, dude, if you want to go travel, go do it. And so I probably am going to do that next year. You probably see me traveling a bunch next year. Next year, you're probably going to see me streaming from the road a lot. I'm going to be streaming. I'm going to go visit my family I'm trying to schedule a visit to Canada to visit my son up there, and so I'll be streaming from position. So I'm gonna try to do digital nomad live. We'll call it like a digital sannyasin. You know what that is? Yeah, sadhu. You know what a sadhu is? And so in the Indian culture, when you get older, there's like different phases of life. There's a family man and all this. And when you get older, all those like crazy gurus that you see that are like all painted up and living on their own as nomads, that's a phase of life that's traditional Indian culture. And there's a big part of me that wants to pursue the sadhu life, even though I deeply love my family. But you can kind of do that and be a digital nomad and move around. All my kids are grown; they're all over 20, right? So, well, yes, that's true. Well, there's like 18, so but they're all grown, so I can like bounce around and visit them and go hiking in that area, and then I got insurance now, so I don't have to worry. Take you on my GoPro and that kind of thing. So it's more about what kind of life do you want than it is more about the money and the tech, right? Um, in my case though, I would lower my costs and increase my experience because experience is greater long term benefit to you and everybody else. You're excited to hear that your company is now offering a permanent remote program. You have to apply to get accepted, but hoping to get it. Yes, I have commuted remotely for over 25 years. So since 1997, actually at Nike was the last time I had to work in, and even before then I worked remote. So there was a 3 year period between 97 and 2000 that I had to go into work, and I bike commuted to Nike like 20 miles. It was crazy. Um, and after that, after when I got work at IBM and everything, I was 100% remote. So since the year 2000 and a few years before that, I've been 100% remote. I will not accept work on site ever again. It doesn't make any sense to me. In fact, when I try to consider, when I get so annoyed it's driving to the store. I bought some new running shoes today, and I was like so annoyed driving to the store. So there's other things to consider in this decision, not besides money and tech, right? There's also, am I going to have to drive in? And then there's those my ex father-in-law used to say, hey, you just got to raise every time gas prices would go up, because the other thing too about that is if you do have to go in. Public transportation, COVID aside, is a great way to study without having to waste your time. You used to live walking distance from work and you really miss it. Yeah, that is fun. Let's see. You'll be in the Toronto area. You might say hi to another graveyard streamer. Yeah, I've thought about. We're gonna drive right past Mr. Dennis. Yep, we're gonna drive right past there. So I might actually stop in and go bother him. I love Toronto. I know it's expensive and people are moving out to the outskirts, but I would love to. I love to. I seriously considered moving there last year. I said so on the stream many times. By the way, if you want to fast track your visa into Toronto, work in tech, like the top 6 things that gets fast tracked visa approvals to work there are all tech related. So, so if you want to be a digital nomad, they really grease the wheels for tech workers because they know they need them. And meanwhile, America is like scaring away tech people that are writing blogs about how they're going back to their countries because they don't want to risk what's in the last 4 years kind of situations. Because it's absolutely insane. It's like America's trying really hard to stop being an innovative country. At least the political elite at the time were doing that, and it just be crazy. It's like, what are the numbers, like 60-70% are expats in Silicon Valley or something. It's like ridiculously high. And they do. There's the guy that went back for China. There's the guy that's running the whole new China Silk Road. I watched a whole documentary about this. He was like a senior tech official for Microsoft in California for 20 years, and he went back, and now he's running all of the China's thing, and they're just kicking our ass. Did you see the guy who stepped down, the lead software person, the senior software executive or whatever position in the Pentagon? He stepped down. There was a whole blog about it this week. I put it in the news. I should have put it in the news. He stepped down because he says we can't keep up. He was over software and cybersecurity, and he said we can't keep up. They're going to destroy us. So he says I'm done. He literally like threw his hat in the air and just left. He's like, I don't want to be in charge of this. They won't pay anything. He couldn't get funding for anything. I mean, it's kind of negative, but I don't know if that's related to this video. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video. Any other comments? I also missed my 16 months of unemployment. Oh boy. For younger people, It sometimes might be good to work in office for mental health. Yeah, you know what? I can hear that. I could see you saying that. If you don't have, I don't know because I never had that possibility. Um, Mental health. There are a lot of people who, I think that there's ways for you to address your mental health issue that's not related to work. I think that you could find meetups and stream and do things like that to find people. I want to believe that anyway. I haven't been tested in that regard. The most I've been tested in that regard is now in my 50s. This streaming has really been a mental health thing for me. You might think I'm crazy and I might get called unhinged by other streamers, but the truth of the matter is that being on stream with y'all has been very satisfying for me. It might not always seem like it, but I can't talk about this stuff with anyone. Who am I going to talk about it with? My wife tries really hard and she's super intelligent, and my stepson, same thing, but they don't want to hear about it. So I think that there are other ways to address that. I would never take a job where I had to go into the office for my mental health, personally. But I imagine some people like that. That is a pretty common theme though in Twitter from young people. I follow a lot of young people who are new in their career, and a lot of them talk like that a lot. You strain more if you had a job. Yeah, getting a job is tough too. That's the first part, right? Um, let's see. At one point, I had to do 1.5 hour back and forth and wanted to die after 3 years. Oh my God, yeah. Before we went full remote, my commute was crossing a boulevard behind the apartment. The only way I survived my commute to my 20-mile commute to Nike was I did it by bike. I let that be my triathlon training, and that was the highlight of my triathlon career. That was when I performed the best in the Nike Masters competition and stuff like that, because I built that otherwise annoying thing into a fun part of my life, and and Nike fully supported it. They were all about that. So I was able to write off 2.5 3 hours a day for commuting by bike, even in the winter, um, and so that allowed that commute experience to not be a negative. I also learned most everything I know about tech while I was on public transportation on the snowy days and stuff. So yeah, if you're gonna go in, there's ways to get around that too. And the flip side of that is that my wife at the time, she was stuck with small kids at home during all that time, and she lived right next to, she lived probably like 5 miles from her family, who supported her a lot. They were with her a lot while I was making the money, and I was from a Mormon family, which means the guy makes the money, the woman raises the children. That's just what the Mormons tell you is what God's will is for you, and it's bullshit. I absolutely think it's bullshit now, but we were able to make that work. Until we didn't, and we got divorced, right? So, let's see. You first bought your new house, but as the years went by, it got pretty rough. It'd be 10 years in April. Really? Wow. Job search is rough right now. I ended up getting hired back on with the previous employer in a different role because they liked your experience. Oh, that's not bad. I would do that. I actually reapplied to IBM, and they said, we have a particular dynamic here where we like to all be in the office together. And I said, okay, I'm not interested at this time. And within 3 weeks, I had another job that I'm quite positive pays way more than that. So don't always take the first offer either. I mean, have a couple offers out there and get the experience, people. Just force yourself to get, this is a different topic. We'll talk about another, how do you make yourself, desirable as an employer? And I've been telling you over and over and over again, learn cloud native. If you want to fast track to big money, learn cloud native tech. I'm not just talking about DevOps. I'm talking about all the infrastructure to do cloud native in addition to the DevOps-y kinds of things. They specifically, it's a different video, but they specifically in my job interview said, we are not looking for DevOps people. DevOps is fine and you need to learn that, but they said, we are looking for infrastructure engineers who know how to put systems and architectures together, the networking, the computers, the Linux systems, the containerization, the Kubernetes, all of it. And then we also want Kubernetes experience. And I said, I don't know Kubernetes at all. And they said, do you know this other stuff? Yes. And I said, fine, you're hired. Learn that stuff on the job. So I think the single most important thing most beginners could do today, if you want to be in tech, is to, and I've already talked about this a lot, is to get really, really solid Linux foundation, really solid Linux and containers foundation, and build on that. And when I say that, I mean, using Docker building Docker images specifically. I don't think you need to compose at all. People disagree with me. And then learn Kubernetes. There's big money there, and there's a massive drought of skills in that area. And by the way, if you do learn that, I've got a recruiter who's just chomping at the bit for new people. So let me know in the Discord. This could be a series follow-up on Boost. Yeah, well, I actually do want to do the series on Boost. You're talking about getting a job? There's another Boost thing that I've been doing called Good to Gig, and it's how to get placed. And then there's the cloud native stuff, which is going to be after Boost as well. Again, if you look at my schedule, you can see that these writing times are where I'm trying to get that content organized. It's taking me a long time because I got a full-time job now. Before I didn't, and I mean I did, but it was a job that I ran, and so I'm having a much harder time making time. Plus, I also need to certify before my stuff expires. So that's going to be in July. I got time. So yes, there's definitely going to be a series on cloud from me. And so, yeah, I'm going to wrap this little video up. It's a little bit longer than I wanted, but do what's best for you. I personally think experience is better than money, unless you don't have any roots or anything, because experience is going to pay more later. And not only that, but the experience is going to keep you employable, right? I mean, I can make 200,000 as a COBOL engineer today, and I as a COBOL software developer, and I imagine there's plenty of work out there, but there's not nearly as much work as there is cloud native or cybersecurity right now, right? Or and everything. So relevant experience has value that's not in terms of cash; it's in terms of employability. And employability, I don't know how you can put a dollar on value on that, right? So I think employability is relevant. And you put COBOL in your resume, you better be prepared to explain that to your next position. You want to be a Kubernetes Cloud Native engineer after you did 5 years of COBOL. They're going to be like, okay, explain this to us. So, well, see here, I got a CCAT and CKA. I did all this stuff to retrain, right? You're going to be able to prove to your employer that you got the new thing, because otherwise, what are they going to do? You have a 4-year gap in your education. You're a teacher and you want to go into Cloud Native. This is where certificates start to make sense, right? You can watch Why Certify. I have a video on that. But in this engineering ops space, it does make sense to certify or to get a credential of some kind. They're not that much. They're $300, $400 or $500, and that's not cheap. But it's at least it's a token in the right direction with HR for you to get that job. So get the experience first, in my opinion. Missing semester, yes. Getting a job and work-life balance. Conquesting, absolutely. Good to Gig is when I cover that. I actually do cover that. In the past I've covered that for people. I just don't have any online material about that at all yet, other than the informal stuff. Sorry for being late again. Shocking no one. Not enough foreigners applied for H-1B visas this year, so the U.S. government ran a secondary lottery. Looks like the U.S. is getting less and less attractive for tech experts. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've been talking about it. You agree? Even in South America, where I live, it applies. Experience is important. Experience keeps you employable, right? And so no matter what your money you're making. Like last 4 years, I totally lost any wish to travel to the U.S. again. Oh yeah, me too. I live here. It's funny. I've been out running and I've been rediscovering the beauty of the country and everything here. I have to find positive things to focus on. I don't want to slam my country. There's a lot of amazing, wonderful things about America, but sometimes it's hard to see them and it's easy to forget. The grass is always greener. But on that note, get the experience. All right. Bye.